precautions before we climb up those stairs, or you climb up those stairs. I will not be going with you. Just a reminder not to use flash photography when you do climb while people are on the stairs, because it can flash through these little holes in the staircase, temporarily blind you. You're creating down the staircase, no fun for anybody. Also, just keep the creepy noises to a minimum, keep your voices down, just so everybody can fully enjoy the tour. And also, I say that because of something that happened to me about 2 months ago in the tower. One of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me personally while working here was after I shut down the observation deck after the second portion of the tour. I headed all the way to about the halfway point and found 2 women sitting on the bench who said, "Are you already going down? Because we didn't get to go all the way up yet." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So I walked them all the way back up to the top. We got about 2 landings away from the observation deck, and I heard a very distinct whistling sound. It sounded like maybe an older man whistling, sort of like a steady sea shanty, very distinct, seemed to be coming from outside on the observation deck. But because we occasionally have people that whistle in the tower just to wake people out, I wasn't positive that that's what I was hearing, so I just shook it off, and we kept climbing. We went around the observation deck, started to head back down. On the same landing where I heard the whistling, but on the way back down, I felt, and the other 2 women felt, the entire staircase behind us start to violently shake, as if about, and I swear it felt like 10 people just careening down the staircase behind me. We both froze up. It continued to shake, but it felt like somebody had run right past me and continued down the stairs, and then it just sort of dissipated eventually. So by that time I was shaken, and we doubled our time down the staircase. We made it out of the lighthouse, didn't pass anybody on our way out, but when we got down, everybody on the tour was in the courtyard staring into the lighthouse and immediately asked me if any one of us had been whistling in the tower, to which we said, "That wasn't you guys." And they swear that nobody was in the tower whistling, that nobody had come out in the last 10 minutes, which was about the amount of time we've been in there. So with all that evidence gathered, I have surmised that there was probably a keeper in there with us that evening. Now, how many of you have seen the Ghost Hunters episode that was filmed here? It's like, somebody has to have. Never got nobody. That would be crazy. So famously in 2006, the Ghost Hunters filmed on location here, and what they caught is still considered one of their greatest episodes. They saw what we have affectionately called the shadow figure, and what he was basically a head and shoulders, leaning over the railing like this, and then just sort of moving up and down the landings. He's all black, no features, just all shadowed, and he's been spotted since then quite a few times by us, by our guests, and other investigators as well. So we definitely believe that one of the keepers is in this tower as well as inside of the keeper's house with us. So I'm going to send you up with that. If you don't want to climb tonight, don't worry about it. I'll be in the courtyard. You can sit on a bench, but I highly encourage it if you feel up to the challenge. In the meantime, if you want to
Do you mind if she takes a picture before you go out?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. There's also going to be opportunities.
After yesterday walking,
It's now a shrimp boat exhibit. It's basically just stuff all over the walls. You're not missing a whole lot. But originally, this would have been the bedrooms for the keeper and his family. Now, to give you a little idea of what it used to look like, I'm actually going to split this building in half. So let's split it in half this way. Get a laser pointer. And you've got the keeper and his family on that side of the house, and then the assistant keeper and his entire family on this side of the house. So yes, it was a duplex. 2 families shared this property, plus there would have been a little apartment outside for a bachelor who served as an apprentice to the lighthouse keeper. So actually quite a few people living on property here. Now we're going to split the building in half again, so you actually have 4 rooms in here. If you look around during the day, you'll notice that there's 4 fireplaces. That would indicate 4 bedrooms. So 2 per side, 1 for the keeper and his wife, and 1 for all of their children. William Harn, one of the first lighthouse keepers here, had 5 daughters living inside of one of those bedrooms. So, yes, people say all the time, they live in such a nice big house. I mean, yeah, it's a big house, but kind of cramped living conditions. They were taken care of fairly well by the U.S. Coast Guard, but they did more or less live on an isolated island back in the 1800s. This was pretty much unoccupied. That maritime hammock that you walked through, the vegetated area on the pathway up here, that's what the entire island would have looked like. There pretty much were no people out here. And there were no bridges or anything going here, so they had to go by boat to get any supplies. They just had a little garden and so forth. So after keepers sort of stopped living here, we didn't have a need for them because we became automated. This building temporarily became an apartment complex. So it was used by Flagler students and any lucky locals who got to live close to the lighthouse. And then it became abandoned and dilapidated, and we had squatters, trespassers. It became a bit of an eyesore. So St. Johns County decided they wanted to bulldoze the whole thing. Now there was a mysterious fire in 1970. We don't really know what caused it, but we suspect it was arson, even though we never caught anybody. There was a group of women called the Junior Service League of St. Augustine who wanted to do everything in their power to prevent the site from being bulldozed and to renovate the keeper's house. So the fire had completely gutted out all of the wooden structure, but it did leave the brick on the outside as well as the coquina basement. So we had a little bit of a shell of the remains to kind of go on. So the Junior Service League raised the funds to rebuild the keeper's house and renovate our entire site, turn it into St. Augustine Lighthouse and Maritime Museum, which we are today. And this is the corny part of the tour I kind of got to get through. I got to thank you guys for buying these very expensive glow sticks, because it's people like you that keep the light turning and the doors open. All right, plug the JSL. So let's rewind the history a bit to the original construction of the lighthouse. It started in 1871. It was finished in 1874. So it only took 3 years to build that entire 165-foot tower that you all just enjoyed climbing today. There are 1.2 million bricks. The walls at the bottom are 15 feet thick. The walls at the top are 3 feet thick. It is all Alabama brick, Pennsylvania iron. That is a 9.5-foot tall first order Fresnel lens in the top. It's a very impressive piece of architecture. The head of construction for that lighthouse was a gentleman by the name of Hezekiah Pitty. And in 1871, he had to move his entire family out here onto Anastasia Island because it took him 3 years to build the thing. So Hezekiah had 4 children. Their names were Mary, who was 15, Eliza, 13, Edward, I believe he was about 10, and then Carrie was 4 years old. Now, Hezekiah strictly warned the children not to play on the construction site, but there's not a lot to do out on Anastasia Island in the 1800s, so they found fun in any way they could, and one of the things they really liked to play on was a rail cart that went from the active construction sites all the way across the street that exists now, and not at the time, to the shoreline where the ocean originally was. So the tracks stopped just before the shore. The children would get in at this end, roll it all the way across the street. It would stop at the end of the tracks. They would get out and do it all over again. No problemo. Until one day, July 10th, 1873. 4 children got into the rail cart: Mary, Eliza, Carrie, and an unnamed playmate who was about 10 years old. They got in at one end, and it rolled all the way across the street as usual. But instead of stopping at the end of the tracks, the cart toppled over, upside down, and pinned the 4 girls underneath in the ocean water. Now, there was a construction worker who managed to spot the incident from across the street, and he ran as fast as he could to the shoreline and lifted the cart just in time to save one girl. Carrie, the youngest, outlived her sisters and her playmate. The other 3 girls did drown that day. Now you have to think about that really heavy energy. You have to think about Carrie outliving her sisters, the girls who didn't get to live out their full lives. And then you have Hezekiah, whose job was essentially the reason why these girls died, why his daughters had died. And then you have Dan Sessions, the construction worker whose personal journal on record says that if only he had been stronger or faster, he could have saved the other girls. And because of all of that energy, we believe that that is why the girls are very much a part of our tour. We do have a lot of activity that really seems to be Mary, Eliza, and the 3rd girl. We seem to get a lot more activity when we have children on the tour. Now, generally around the age that the girls would have been, but even younger and sometimes even older. I had a group of Girl Scouts on my tour. They were the only people in my group. We were up here in the gallery, and in the middle of the spiel that I'm giving now, one of the girls' glow sticks just kind of raised up in the air, popped off the cap, and from right out here in the room, it flew all the way to the wall across from me. And I mean flew. I don't mean just rolled. So at first I thought she was messing with me because I didn't really see it fully, and I just went on with the tour, and then it happened again about 3 minutes later. So I'm starting to pay closer attention, make sure that they're not messing with their glow sticks or anything, but they do seem genuinely shocked. So by about the 3rd time it happens, these girls want to prove to me that they're not messing with me. So they came up with a method to prove to me that this was not them. A girl would stand in the middle of the gallery right here with about 4 feet of space between them and everybody else and lift their arms out at their sides. And I watched about a half a dozen more times their glow sticks lift up in the air, pop off the caps, and fly across the room. I've also had people say that their glow sticks have come off of their necks entirely, as if the knot had become untied and it dropped to the ground. But they'll go to pick it up again, and the knot has been retied into a different knot. So something a little more complicated than what we do, not like a noose or anything, but more like a sailor's knot. So a man's hoodie was also tied into a bow once. That's one of the more recent things that happened that was really funny to me. Now, the glow sticks are definitely targets for the girls, so it kind of makes us all a bit of a target. We stand out a bit more with the blue ones. But still, we had a tour guide who worked here about 3 years ago. He was closing up the tower for the evening, and one of the steps that's required of us is to close all the windows. And if you look in there, you'll see that there's a couple of windows that are placed in such a way that require us to swing our legs over a railing when we're about 100 feet or so up in the air in the dark, reach way over and slam the window shut. So this tour guide's in the process of doing that. He's got an iron beam between his legs here, and he's reaching way over, about to close the window, and his glow stick just flies up into space and hovers there. And he said it took about 5 seconds, but it felt like a lifetime, and it just kind of like shook in his face. until it finally dropped, and he slammed the window shut, swung his leg back over, and he starts to book it down the tower, and he gets all the way to the bottom, and he hears a very clear humming sound, like a young girl humming at the very top of the tower. So, being a responsible tour guide, he had to climb all the way back up those 219 stairs just to make doubly sure that he did not lock anybody up on the observation deck. Because that can happen. I think it has happened. Not a good thing to do. There's only one way down at that point. So he gets all the way back up the 219 stairs, opens the observation deck door, and does a walk around. Of course, there's nobody up there. He doesn't hear the humming anymore, so he starts to head back down. He gets about halfway down, and he hears the humming again. But it's not coming from the observation deck this time. It's coming from directly below him in the rotunda, in the direction he's going and in his only way out. So he booked it out of that tower in absolute record time and did not go back in for a few weeks at least. We've had workers shut in the tower and we have to climb out of a window. There was a solid week where every single night a different tour guide was locked in the tower. The only way to shut that or completely lock that tower door is with one of the keys that only we have and from the outside. It cannot be bolted from the inside and it can't be bolted without those keys, so we would know about it. That has never happened to me. I'm so glad that has never happened to me. Now, one of the other things the girls really like to mess with might single a few of you out. How many of you are wearing shoes with shoelaces? So am I. I don't know why I do this to myself. The girls have been known to tie shoelaces together. They've also been known to tie them to other things, untie them, and so forth. We had a woman standing at the base of the tower ready to take her first step up, and as she lifted her foot up, she realized that her lace had been tied to the railing. Fortunately, she noticed that just in time. I had a woman come to me about a week ago and say that her double knotted shoelace had been untied before I even told this story. So definitely keep an eye on your shoes tonight. Take a look down, make sure they're not tied together or anything, and get up, and we're going to go outside back into the cold just for a little while. Oh, it is windy. All right. Watch your step. Kind of file on down as much as you can. The Anastasia State Park. And then you finally get to the ocean. So people always say, why are you so far away from the ocean? There's actually two answers to that. The first answer is because Conch Island did not exist until 1964. Hurricane Dora pushed up a sandbar and created this body of land. It became vegetated. So when the lighthouse was first constructed, right across the street there, that was actually the ocean. So we were much closer to the water at the time. Now, the other answer to that question is because erosion and things are very dangerous to lighthouses, especially in Florida. You don't want to get a tower this big that close to the water. There was a Spanish watchtower located across the street. It was built in the 1500s. It was one of several around St. Augustine. That was actually converted into St. Augustine's first lighthouse, and also Florida's first lighthouse. So in the 1700s, they added a coquina base and put a light on top, put a man in charge, and voila, it was Florida's first lighthouse. That did collapse into the ocean shortly after this one was finished. So that's your other answer. Erosion is another threat to lighthouses. Now, one of the keepers of that original tower was a man named Joseph Andrew. He was whitewashing his tower one day, and unfortunately some scaffolding collapsed underneath him. He plummeted 65 feet to his death. Now, that answers the question, has anybody ever fallen off of the tower? Actually, no, nobody's ever fallen off of this tower. But yes, Joseph Andrew did fall off of the original St. Augustine Lighthouse. So the answer to that question is a yes or a no, depending on who I'm talking to. So Joseph Andrew's obituary was very detailed for somebody who lived out on an isolated island back in the 1800s. His obituary very distinctly states that he hit the side of the tower, bounced off the oil house, and ricocheted onto the wall down below where he snapped his neck and died instantly. It's a very unpleasant death. Even more so because we believe Maria Andrew probably witnessed the incident. Maria was Joseph's wife, probably the reason why the obituary was so detailed. So according to legend, Maria climbed to the top of the tower on the night of her husband's passing and called out into the wind. It's a nice windy day, gives you the heart here. Called out into the wind, "What shall I do?" And the wind echoed back, "Tend the light." So that is exactly what Maria Andrew did. She became Florida's first female lighthouse keeper and the first Hispanic woman to join the U.S. Coast Guard. So she's a little bit of a local hero around here. She tended the light for quite some time until an important event hit the United States in the 1860s. That was Civil War. Bingo, thank you. I'm so glad somebody got that right tonight. So, in order to prevent Union soldiers from spotting the light, Maria, the mayor, and several men from around town removed the lens, buried it outside of town. The lighthouse was decommissioned. The Union soldiers actually did end up finding the light, but Maria was able to retire peacefully and move to Georgia. So contrary to popular belief, she did not actually die on site. She passed away of old age or something like that, something peaceful. But we believe that because of her loyalty to her job and her love for her husband, she has decided to stick around our site. She is known as our woman in white. She's a very famous spirit here. She's been spotted across the street at the site of the original tower by locals. She's been spotted on top of our lighthouse in the middle of the night when nobody could possibly be up there. But even so, our manager has to come out here in the middle of the night, climb up all those stairs, make sure nobody's on the deck. She's described as a woman in a white flowing nightgown with long black hair. She's also possibly the reenactor that people say that they see out in the woods. So people will come to us in the gift shop and say, "Your reenactor was so knowledgeable about the new tower as well as the old one. And she had such a beautiful white dress and such pretty clothing and all of that." They also associate a very specific scent with Maria. It's sort of an orange blossomy floral perfume smell. It's called a phantom smell. It's something that we will get on the site. There's another one that we'll talk about later when we get down into the basement. So that's Maria. And if you will follow me back into the building, we're going to get downstairs into the main level of the house. See if I can open this door on this creepy dark staircase. If anyone gets dragged down, it's going to be me, but if that does happen, I have one request. So, absolutely whip your phones out and film it, because I want to get that on YouTube. I will be the sacrifice for that, but please call the police first. Or somebody call the police. So, 2 birds, 1 stone. Okay, before we get started with this portion of the building, I want to talk about the closet directly behind the both of you. So for those of you who rented EMF meters, you're probably going to notice that they spike to about a yellow or an orange when you're near there. Does anybody care to demonstrate? You gotta hold it on, just leave it. Maybe not. Okay, so not tonight. Usually it does. Well, thanks a lot, closet. You've never given me trouble before. So, normally it will spike to a yellow or an orange. There are no demons in that closet. There's no dead bodies as far as I know tonight. But that is a fuse box. So it's one of the things that's going to set your meter off for sure. If you find yourself talking to a wall in between the bathrooms, also a fuse box. I also spent 15 minutes conversing with a table right over there. Nobody told me that was going to set off our meters. It's a new display, I had no idea. It spikes your meters to about a red. So be cautious over there as well. Yeah, so this is the main level of the keeper's house. It was laid out pretty much exactly the same as the upstairs level. So it was a duplex, 2 rooms on each side, but these were a parlor and a dining room. If you look across the hall into the room on the other side, you'll see our Harn exhibit. It's laid out maybe how it would have looked when the Harns lived here in the Victorian period. Definitely check it out on your free time. It's a little too small for us all to go into right now. It's laid out a little historically accurate, so that's why I believe it's probably one of the biggest hot spots on site here. You'll notice that on the mantelpiece there's a framed portrait. It's got a picture of the Pity Children on there. So definitely shine a light on there during your free time, take a look at it. It puts faces to the story. It makes it a lot darker, a lot more real. There's also a couple pieces of antique furniture in there. Disclaimer, so my museum manager does not burn me at the stake in the morning. Please don't sit on them. There's red ribbons across them indicating not to sit on them. They are not original to the house, but they're still antiques. But people will say that they see indentations appear in those chairs and then get back up as if somebody invisible just sat down next to them. There's also a rocking chair in there. And in the middle of one tour, that rocking chair started violently moving back and forth, just like in every horror movie you have ever seen. And the tour guide that night just yelled, "Stop it!" And just like that, that rocking chair stopped dead in its tracks, proving that she has way more authority than I do. Even the ghosts, do what she says. So, yes, definitely check out that room. Now, one of the weirdest group experiences we've had here happened in that hallway right there that you just walked through. We were in this room in the middle of a tour about 4 years ago, and we heard some very loud, distinct footsteps. And I'm not talking about somebody quietly walking down the stairs. I mean like really heavy footfalls. And they seemed to be going downwards. There was originally a staircase there in that hallway connecting the upstairs to the downstairs for the people who lived here. That staircase doesn't exist anymore. It burned down in the fire. They just decided not to put it back in. But that sound really did seem to be descending that staircase. A very brave woman peeked her head inside, looked down in the hallway at the floor, and noticed 2 footsteps, one after the other. But contrary to the very loud noise created, these footsteps were small, barefoot, dirty, about the size of a child's. No, we didn't have any children on that tour that evening, and we certainly didn't have any barefoot, dirty children on the tour. We managed to snap pictures of them. The footsteps stayed there for about 2 weeks. Our maintenance guy scrubbed at them and scrubbed at them. He still complains about it. He could not get them up. And then they just decided to vanish on their own 2 weeks later. Luckily, we have those pictures still. We've gotten another similar set of footprints in more recent times, and we get a lot of footprints around the site every once in a while as well. So, before we head into the dark, spooky basement, I want to give you a little bit of a warning about the floor down there. So if you decide to stand on this side of the room, there's a platform. It's part of our archaeology exhibit. It's supposed to represent the ocean floor, but really it's just a step up and then it's a wooden nightmare. It dips and dives. It's horrible. So be careful when you go down there. Feel free to stand on that side. Just move slowly. So just, yeah, follow me into the dark. The designer didn't stop to think, oh, we come in here at night. We bring people in here. Yeah. They probably get inside and make money. Funny for them because they don't do this. Actually, a lot of people came on the side. Wow, that's a new one. Usually I have like 2 people up here.
Even after the line.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Oh my God.
As long as this is going to be fun.
All right. Did we lose anybody?
Almost lost me.
The night is young.
You'll have to work harder than that.
So, for any Florida natives in this room, you're probably wondering, how are we in a basement? Because basements are a bit of an anomaly in this state. Usually you dig like an inch down, you get to the ocean. We have coquina walls in here. It's very unique to this building, so it enables us to have this basement. I'm personally not a fan of basements, didn't grow up with them, don't like them. This is simultaneously my least favorite, but also a little bit of a favorite room in the house. I don't come in here by myself ever under any circumstances, especially not in the dark. It's one of the top hotspots for activity on the entire site. Particularly a portion of the room right over there. That corner we've creatively called Creepy Corner. We're good at naming things. A lot of creepy things have happened over there. Particularly one tour when we had about a 4-year-old boy with his mother who would frequently turn around, talk to the corner, have a full conversation, and occasionally turn around and just say, shh. There were 2 women standing next to each other on an entirely separate tour. They'd never met each other before, but at the end of this portion of the tour, the first woman turned to the second woman and said, "Your daughter has been so well behaved throughout this tour. She has such good manners." And the second woman said, "I don't have a daughter. I don't know what you're talking about." The first woman insisted, "The girl with you. She's been so quiet, has such good manners, thank you," so forth and so on. The second woman said, "There's no girl with me on this tour. I don't have a daughter. There's nobody standing next to me. Just you." That woman swore up and down that she had seen a 13-year-old girl standing next to that woman throughout the entire tour. Nobody else on that tour saw a girl next to her or saw any children on that tour whatsoever. But she followed her around the entire site. Are you okay? I didn't know he was standing beside me. Oh God, you're gonna have a fun night. It's okay. All right, so much over her. One other thing that used to happen in this building all the time, back when this was our visitor center, we didn't have that gift shop you guys came in. So we set up our visitor center, our ticket section here. So while the parents purchased tickets upstairs, the children would come down here to that table that we have set up now. There's usually a tea set there. We used to have a little kids corner with like coloring books and stuff. But kids would be down here and run up the stairs in tears and say that the man in the corner that was staring at them was scaring them. They would describe this man as an older gentleman in a dark suit with buttons going down the front with a dark short brim hat. Very specific descriptions. They all lined up with all of the children and claimed that he was standing in that corner just glaring at them. That lines up perfectly with the uniform that the U.S. Coast Guard issued the lighthouse keepers. So a dark navy coat with gold buttons going down the front and a dark short brim hat. Our director, about 15 years ago, was closing up the basement for the night. She happened to glance into that room over there, and she said she saw a man of that exact description walk across the hall and disappear into the wall on the other side. She didn't go back into this basement for quite some time. She's never been a believer in ghosts, but she still doesn't like coming down here. So, all right, so I'm going to get to the difficult portion of the tour. I need to pick 2 volunteers. We'll call them volunteers. I need a guy and a gal. You look like a guy.
No.
Oh my God.
I hope you're a guy. I don't feel real bad. I saw a girl over here raise her hand first. I like to pick 2 people who don't know each other. Just make it worse. So you two come with me, and the rest of you stay here just for a moment. We'll be back. I'm seated in some very special chairs, but before we get on to that, I want to talk about the floor again. Same situation going on that side of the room. In that room, there's an even bigger step up, and then it dips and dives like crazy. On my first tour here, I actually fell flat on my back, so be careful. I also want to talk about the dark cavernous pits of doom on the wall over there. So you go into this hallway and look to your right. There's 2 windows in the wall. Those are the cisterns. That's where they originally kept water. But now the floor just goes a little bit below this floor level. So if you climb inside of it, you're going to get stuck. That is the first and only rule we gave to the ghost hunters when they came here, and they immediately broke that rule. One of them, I don't know who, but one of them did get stuck inside the cistern. They had to stop the whole tour, fish them out. If any of you climbs in there, I don't think any of your tour guides this evening, especially not me, is capable of fishing you out of there. So we're going to have to call the paramedics, and they're going to have to get a ladder or something. It's not going to be fun for anybody, so let's avoid getting into the cisterns. So I'm going to try to get out this chair. And if you'll follow me into the last room on our guided version. She's our friendly mannequin. She's based off of one of our underwater archaeologists on site here, Star or something else. And if she ever moves, I'm gone. Like, literally anything else I'm good with, but if she moves, I'm never coming back to work again. All right, so this is weird. I gotta get down. So this is the room we've called Pete's room, named after Peter Rasmussen, our longest running lighthouse keeper here. He worked here for 23 years, and in that amount of time while he lived here on site, he gained a good reputation as a friendly neighbor who held shrimp bakes and clam boils, or whatever you call it, whatever kind of parties you have in the 1800s. And your meter's going off. Anybody get a cell phone on over there?
I got it on.
So every time I talk about Peter in this basement, somebody's meter goes off. Consistently for the past several tours I've given. Peter, is that you? I think Peter's here with us. Usually he ignores me when I start talking about him, to him, he doesn't want to talk. See, there you go. Sorry, Peter. Do you want me to keep talking about you? Spike the meter to red if you want me to talk about you. Spike the meter to red if you want me to stop talking. All together. See, he's shy. He doesn't like to talk to me. Or he just hates me. So anyway, Peter was well liked by his neighbors, but there was one group of people that Peter really didn't like. And some of you might fall into that category. Do you want to take a stab at that?
People that call him Peter Pumpkin Eater.
I mean, I wouldn't like that either, so that's a new one. I'm going to add that to my list of weirdest things people have said. So Peter did not like tourists.
Oh.
He worked for the U.S. Coast Guard, and they required him to show tourists around the lighthouse because even back when he worked here, it was a bit of a tourist attraction. So within the first 4 months of living here, Peter reported some 6,000 guests coming to visit, traipsing through what was his home, basically. So Peter, with us, has a bit of a reputation as a grump. He seems to really favor those chairs that you are both sitting in. I don't know why. They're not original to the house. They're circa like 1990. But Peter's really taken a liking to them no matter where we move them in this room. And the activity that people get while sitting them varies between genders. So I pick one of each to demonstrate a little bit. So with men, he's a little aggressive. He will put pressure on your shoulders. You'll feel heat on the back of your neck. He knocks hats off on occasion. Baseball caps, flips them off. Cowboy hats, flip them off. Beanies, he's been known to completely rip off of people's heads, send them flying across the room. That's much more unnerving to watch, trust me. We had a tour guide who worked here. He was like 6'2", built, tough guy, all that jazz. He decided he was going to spend the free time portion of the tour antagonizing Peter, which I highly discourage for a lot of reasons, but mainly because that evening, that tour guide was shoved violently out of his chair. So if you want to be shoved out of your chair, you know, feel free to be mean to Peter. But I don't think it's very nice to be mean to ghosts. Anyway, so with women, he's a bit more affectionate. If you really want to annoy Peter, we sometimes call him Pete the Perv. It's really mean. I'm sorry, Peter. One time the meter spiked to red when I said that, and I said I wouldn't do it again. Here I am. With women, he will gently stroke your hair. You will have your shoulders massaged, which doesn't sound bad, honestly, tonight. He's a leg guy, so he'll run a finger down your leg, and denim's not going to stop him. He's been known to zigzag around the whole room, hit all the women in the room. I've also been told that he's really fond of blondes, which I cannot attest to because I'm not a natural blonde. Peter clearly doesn't like me. But the other night, I had a woman immediately tell me that she felt her hair being stroked. I also had one tour where the... Hey there! Are you a blonde?
I mean, it's dyed blonde now.
Maybe he doesn't mind natural dyed blondes. Because the last woman, like when I had the same thing happen, it was a blonde woman.
Yeah, hers is going off. And
Are you blonde?
Yeah.
What on earth?
I'm a natural.
Peter. Hey now. Alright, Peter, I'm going to keep talking. Peter also likes Kelsey, one of our other tour guides, who is a natural blonde, so I just, yeah, he like gravitates towards her. It's really interesting. He picks favorites. Where was I with Peter? Oh, yes, I had a man and a woman in this chair one night, and the man immediately told me, oh, I feel like my hair being touched, and the woman was like, oh, I feel like heat on my neck, and I was like, Peter, like, something's going on tonight. Swings both ways. I don't know. So anyway, sorry. He really didn't like that. I'm sorry, Peter. Every single night I'm in this room. This is really interesting. I have to ask Betsy if she got any activity down here. So one of the other weird things that's happened in this basement was at this window here. We have people on occasion tell us that they will see the figure of a man walking towards the window, look inside, turn around, and walk away. Which is not that abnormal. There could be somebody out there, but you do have to remember that we're in a basement. So from this windowsill down, that's just straight up dirt. So when people try to debunk it, what they're doing is rolling around in the dirt outside. So if you want to do that, feel free. Grab me first. I want to point and laugh at you. But anyway, so we've had something happen here tonight, so that's really cool. I highly recommend hanging out in this basement because it does seem to be a hot spot lately. Seems to be a lot of meter activity down here. If you don't want to hang out here, you can follow me outside that door here. We're now going to be on free time. You can go back in the tower, but the observation deck is closed. You can go anywhere around the property as well. So it says alarm will sound. That's a lie. Sorry, guys. Thank you all. You've been great.